More analysis, we can speak now to Kevin Amirehsani, who is an analyst at Global Risk Insight, who joins us from Denver. Thanks for joining us, Kevin. Of course, you know this country very well. 5 years on from the 2010 violence, has Ouattara managed to reconcile the differences there in Ivory Coast?
He has been trying, but the reconciliation has taken place very, very slowly. This is a country that's still racked by tensions between ex-President Laurent Gbagbo and the supporters of Ouattara. The pace of actual reconciliation, the pace of reintegration of various ethnic groups and different parties into the armed forces, for example, has been going quite slowly. Many of the questions that remain from the 2010-2011 situation still actually are there today and haven't really been fully addressed.
Okay, in most countries, when they go to the polls, the economy is at the forefront of everybody's mind. Things seem to be performing pretty well on that front in Ivory Coast. Could that be Ouattara's trump card?
Oh, exactly. I mean, in the last, you have Côte d'Ivoire being one of the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world. Growth rates of nearly 9%. You have bridges, highways being constructed a lot in the last 3 to 4 years. But you haven't really seen the growth trickle down to the average Ivorian, and it hasn't really spread equitably between Abidjan and other areas. In fact, one of the main opposition groups against Ouattara, their slogan is "You can't eat bridges," effectively saying that there's been lots of infrastructure developments, but that hasn't really meant a whole lot in terms of improving the everyday living situation of Ivorians equitably across the country.
So what would you say are the top concerns at the forefront of voters' minds there in Ivory Coast, the economy to one side?
I think this election is about two things, legitimacy and showing off that Côte d'Ivoire is indeed stable, not only for its people, but for investors, for donors, for the broader international community. So people still want these issues to be dealt with. One of the big questions, for example, will be if Ouattara implements one of his campaign pledges, which, if elected, he pledges to scrap the part of the Ivorian constitution that disallows people with roots in Mali and Burkina Faso and non-Ivorian countries from actually becoming president. There are still very, very deep-seated ethnic differences between Northerners who have in the past largely supported Ouattara and those in the center of the region, those in the West. So that remains to be seen how that will be dealt with adequately by Ouattara's government.
Yeah, assuming Ouattara does indeed win in that vote. But I was going to ask you about the other candidates running. Does anyone there stand out as being someone who might be a particular threat to Ouattara in terms of a likely runner-up or likely winner outright?
I don't really think so. You have Pascal Affi-N'Guessan, who is probably the biggest portion of ex-Gbagbo's party. He's running. The other portion, of course, of the party chose not to run. You have a very divided opposition, fragmented. That's why most of the projections say that Ouattara should win this in the first round. With that being said, I think you have Ivorian voters really being tired of violence, and Ivorian voters really wanting to embrace moving on and really embrace sort of this new vision for Côte d'Ivoire. So I do think Ivorians are kind of wary from these years of conflict. They want to put issues behind them, but some of the main issues from the 2010-2011 violence have not been adequately addressed by any means.
Thank you so much, Kevin Amirehsani, analyst at Global Risk Insight. Thank you so much for speaking to France 24.